Good evening, everyone. We spoke exclusively and separately with both presidential candidates today, and what emerged was a kind of long-distance debate, and their differences on the wars have never been sharper or clearer. I met with Barack Obama here in Amman. He had just flown in after visiting Iraq and Afghanistan. Meanwhile, I interviewed John McCain by satellite hookup. He was in New Hampshire. And if you have any doubt about where they stand and what they would do, just listen.
My job as Commander-in-Chief would be to indicate to them, here's our goal. Here are the missions that we need to carry out. Now you tell me what it is that we need in terms of boots on the ground, in terms of equipment, in terms of other capabilities that are going to be required. But the overarching strategy is not something that I can deflect to the generals. That's something that I have to make a decision of if I am President of the United States.
Having said that, if General Petraeus or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Admiral Mullen, say to you, hey, President Obama,
right,
if that comes to pass, you cannot take out the final complement of combat troops. We need them in theater. You would say?
I will always listen to the commanders on the ground, and I will make an assessment based on the facts at that time.
Before the surge, as you know, Senator, there were 80 to 100 U.S. casualties a month. The country was rife with sectarian violence, and you raised a lot of eyebrows on this trip, saying, even knowing what you know now, you still would not have supported the surge. People may be scratching their heads and saying, why?
What happens is that if we continue to put $10 to $12 billion a month into Iraq, if we are willing to send as many troops as we can muster continually into Iraq, there's no doubt that that's going to have an impact. But it doesn't meet our long-term strategic goal, which is to make the American people safer over the long term. If that means that we're detracting from our efforts in Afghanistan, where conditions are deteriorating, if it means that we are distracted from going after Osama bin Laden, if we have shifted away from the central front of terrorism as a consequence of enormous and continuing investments in Iraq, then that's a poor strategic choice.
But talking microcosmically, did the surge, the addition of 30,000 additional troops, help the situation in Iraq?
Katie, there is no doubt that our troops helped to reduce violence. Those additional troops could have gone into Afghanistan. That money also could have been used to shore up a declining economic situation in the United States. That money could have been applied to having a serious energy security plan so that we were reducing our demand on oil, which is helping to fund the insurgents in many countries.
Do you think the level of security in Iraq would exist today without the surge?
Katie, I have no idea what would have happened had we applied my approach, which was to put more pressure on the Iraqis to arrive at a political reconciliation. So this is all hypotheticals. What I can say is that there is no doubt that our U.S. troops have contributed to a reduction in violence in Iraq.
Senator McCain, Senator Obama says while the increased number of U.S. troops contributed to increased security in Iraq, he also credits the Sunni awakening and the Shiite government going after militias and says that there might have been improved security even without the surge. What's your response to that?
Senator Obama has indicated by his failure to acknowledge the success of the surge that he would rather lose a war than lose a campaign. Thanks to General Petraeus, our leadership, and the sacrifice of brave young Americans. I mean, to deny that their sacrifice didn't make possible the success of the surge in Iraq, I think does a great disservice to young men and women who are serving and have sacrificed. There will still be attacks. Al-Qaeda's not defeated. But the progress has been immense, and to not recognize that and why it happened and how it happened, I think is really quite a commentary.
A commentary on what?
That Senator Obama does not understand the challenges we face and they did not understand the need for the surge. And the fact that he did not understand that and still denies that it has succeeded, I think the American people will make a judgment.
Senator Obama describes Afghanistan as the central front in the war on terror. That is where, after all, Senator, 9/11 was plotted. Why do you believe Iraq is the central front in the war on terror?
Well, one reason is because that's what Osama bin Laden said that it was. He said, go to the country of the two rivers. That's what General Petraeus says, who I think is extremely knowledgeable, that it is the central battleground. And Afghanistan is very tough. And there's a number of great challenges there. And we have to employ the same strategy there that succeeded in Iraq. And we can succeed there. Now that we've succeeded in Iraq, obviously we will be freeing up troops to go to Afghanistan, and we will urge our NATO allies to send more troops and be more involved as well. We can succeed. But you see, Senator Obama doesn't understand it's not just troops. It's an overall strategy. It's not just 2 or 3 brigades. It is also increased engagement on the part of our NATO allies. But I guarantee you, if we had failed in Iraq and been defeated in Iraq, our challenges in Afghanistan would have been dramatically complicated and worsened.
Senator McCain, you sound very frustrated with Senator Obama's perspective.
No, I'm not at all. I respect Senator Obama. I admire his success. He just has been wrong and is wrong, and therefore I strongly disagree, and I think the American people will make a judgment about who was right.
The numbers do indicate that Iraq became much safer during the surge. Civilian deaths are down from 2,000 last August to 490 this past June. Attacks against coalition forces down from 1,500 a week in June of 2007 to about 200 a week now. That's an 80% drop. And fewer U.S. troops were killed in May and June in Iraq than in Afghanistan. I'll be back in a little